Right, so there's no two ways about it, really. Keir Starmer, resorting to a reset already, after just 151 days in power, having already made some frankly evil policy choices, having come down, for example, like a ton of bricks on protesters, having refused an arms ban to the point he's being dragged to court over it, one of the worst budgets for ordinary working class people in living memory, the winter fuel payment being stripped from pensioners, upsetting the farmers. We can pretty much point to almost every decision Keir Starmer has made, and none of it really resembles the promises to the country that he made going into the general election, to the point some 3 million people signed a petition calling for a rerun. And as much as others can scoff at these people not respecting democracy, more true is the fact that Starmer's word to these people in exchange for their vote has proven utterly worthless, and that matters. Starmer lied to a nation to get into power, aided by the media who were backing him, but he was just the next establishment goon to keep things going the way they always have, not running the country in our interests as promised, but theirs. Not delivering the change he pledged, but more of the same. Deciding to reboot his government now and essentially ditch the pledges he stood for election on is not going to help. It will simply show the country he lied then and is probably going to be lying again now. It has taken just 151 days for Labour's fortunes to utterly crumble, and catastrophic polling will simply worsen as we grind through the next 5 years with nothing changing, whether Starmer goes the distance personally or not. Right, so Keir Starmer's premiership has been collapsing at a speed not even the most sure-footed or certain-mouthed of rotten lefties and political commentators who had predicted his political demise would come as soon as his perpetual line got rumbled expected it to happen quite as soon as this. But we are witnessing something truly remarkable in just how fast Labour is going south in government. 151 days in power with nigh on 4.5 years still to go of this parliament, and Labour already look done for. Look so spent you cannot see a way back for them. And it is completely self-inflicted. Toe-curling interviews to explain or excuse their political choices and their broken promises, their affront at being held to account, living in political bubbles as these careerists do, thinking they know best for ordinary working class people, yet have no idea how these people live anymore. The Labour Party now so out of touch with ordinary working class people. Yet when they actually encounter the real thing and see their anger, they don't reflect on themselves that perhaps they've done something wrong, that this is something they need to look at. Instead, the people they encounter are the ones they see as wrong. That these people cannot possibly be representative of the people they represent of this country, and instead they're seen as nuisances. This is why they never apologise for their actions. Worst of all in that regard is Starmer himself, who never says sorry for anything, never admits to making mistakes, ever, never holds his hands up, and therefore becomes more hated than anyone else in the government. Whether you are on the left or the right of politics, Starmer is hated. Everybody seems to hate him, except the most dyed-in-the-wool fanatical Labour right loyalists and your centrist news presenters who excuse it and drive people ever more rightwards, since it is only they who are even worse than Labour who get platformed by said media sufficiently for people to take notice of, and those with the policies that would help people go largely ignored, more's the pity. Such is the case with the latest polling, which is likely still an outlier, but does indicate the direction of travel. A poll where for the first time ever, Reform UK Limited, the private company owned by Nigel Farage masquerading as a political party, is polling higher than Labour now, which is positively terrifying. A party led by a guy who can't be arsed to even show up to serve his own constituents in Clacton is now outstripping Labour in polls. And if this poll came to pass at an election, you'd be almost guaranteed to see a Tory Reform UK coalition, a more right-wing government we'll have never seen, with Labour getting fewer than 200 seats, losing over half the seats they have now, which would absolutely be the worst result for Labour since, well, 1935. Unlike the last election they accused Jeremy Corbyn of losing to that degree. This would be emphatically worse than that. And I remind you again that this will keep going lower and lower yet, because we still have 4.5 years to go. This is just 151 days of Starmer in power, and here's where we are. Of course, another reason for this fall coming so thick and fast is that Starmer's majority is, of course, artificially inflated. He got lent a lot of votes just to punish Rishi Sunak and the Tories. There was an anti-Tory vote emphatically being passed around at the general election. No loyalty to Labour there. He had to give them something to secure their vote, but has instead taken it for granted since. And a majority like his that is built on sand, as this clearly is is going to crumble very quickly when the first political waves start rolling in. And these are waves of Labour's own making. All of those MPs that have been elected, 411 of them that Labour have got, especially the first-timers, of which there is a great many, are slavishly loyal to Starmer because they were picked specifically with loyalty to him as a priority. So the broad church that has always been the Labour Party has become a very narrow, laser-focused and forensic party, some might say. A wickedly bad case of Starmeroids is what I diagnose as the problem, and sadly Dr. Damo has got no cure for that, because even if they rid themselves of Starmer, the party is now so full of clones of him, just like him, with no hope another Corbyn figure could ever emerge. The Labour right have made sure of it, and therefore whoever would come in to replace Starmer will be just as bad, if not possibly even worse. So they're basically screwed, and they've done it all to themselves, and quite honestly I think they know it too. Because here comes Starmer with another one of his resets that he became so well known for as Labour leader before he became Prime Minister. Starmer stood for Labour leader on 10 leadership pledges. He burnt every single one of them and every aspect of them to the ground after he conned Labour members out of their votes into that leadership role, turning on them, turning on the left, proscribing socialist groups and those protesting his type of diktat, and purging members he just didn't want in his Labour Party. Promises of letting local parties choose their candidates evaporated as he just imposed his factional choices as the only people they would be allowed to choose from. And democracy died in the Labour Party the day he became Labour leader. So we shouldn't be surprised that following those pledges came all manner of vows as he'd had another reset when he upset the membership, and then came oaths when that didn't work, followed by pledges and pillars and promises and missions and commitments, and you name it, he's tried it in order to reboot his authority, his leadership, to try and win people back to his side after each and every set of assurances to his own party turned out to be a pack of lies, and he broke his word. And now he's doing it to the entire country because he's now Prime Minister. More and more people in the party woke up to Starmer being a rampant liar, and now the nation has got a taste of that, as his 5 election first steps have effectively been binned off now in favour of some milestones. So that's the next lot. This is Starmer reverting to type. He fails to live up to his promises, and he launches another set of them, and says, judge me on this set, forget the ones before. Just like we judged him on the ones that came before, though. You were literally voted into power off the back of the last lot, and now you think you can just change and get away with that? Just bin them off? Pretend that everything that people voted for Labour for don't matter anymore? Yet even more, he thinks he can get away with it by just watering down what he was voted into power to deliver. This is what he's being told. This is the bubble he lives in. It's not ordinary working class people he's talking to. He doesn't talk to them. It's utterly inexcusable and unforgivable, especially in a Prime Minister, and his polling and reputation will only decline further because of this. And I'll give it another few months and these milestones will be binned as well, as he tries this same trick again, because it's literally the only trick he's got. These milestones will become a millstone around his neck, whilst giving us all gallstones, especially on the left, that he's had the gall to pull this stunt yet again. And as far as his political career goes, his milestones deserve to become his political gravestone, because he won't keep to these either. Of that I am very certain. Starmer's 6 milestones demonstrate actually just how inept a politician he actually is. The milestones relate to the economy, the NHS, house building, energy, policing and education. 6 of them. And for a start, all of those, with the exception of energy and economy, are devolved issues which central government has no say over. So this implies Starmer doesn't even seem to know how the country's actually run. He can't impose any of those milestones on devolved governments. It's up to them how they run those services. Economically, he wants to raise living standards when his tax on employers' national insurance has just cost jobs, and where people are still employed likely can kiss their end-of-year bonuses and the like goodbye. That is not making people better off, not making them more economically prosperous, because more money in neat people's pockets is needed for that, and this policy has done the complete opposite. With regards to the NHS, it is again getting waiting lists down that he's talking about. But again, without the investment in frontline NHS services, with too much of the NHS cash being bled away to the privatised parts of it, to line shareholders' pockets, with more of that still to come, because this is absolutely what Starmer and Streeting want to do, this is again just words without any real sense of how he's ever going to achieve it. On education, he says he wants to get 5-year-olds prepared for school. Does he not know that they start at 4? I'm 46 years of age. I remember back in the early 80s going in as a rising 5. So what is he talking about? Do you think we're stupid and ignorant like he is? Because he doesn't seem to understand the educational picture of this country. It's just weird. 95% clean power by 2030 is a watering down of his election pledge of 100% green energy by 2030. Plus, it was all supposed to lower energy bills, wasn't it? And that's been conveniently dropped because the green energy GB energy plan he had isn't going to produce energy at all. It's just going to be an investment vehicle for the oil and gas giants to take over our green energy infrastructure as it comes into being and keep scalping us through our bills as a result of ownership of that, so they can maintain their profits. And nothing sums up serving big business and not the people who elected them quite like this does. This is the sort of stunt you fully expect the Tories to pull, but then Starmer is a Tory, as I've said so many times before. On policing, he wants more bobbies on the beat. Well, how many times has this been promised by numerous politicians to no avail? You can't just magic them out of thin air. And on house building, he wants 1.5 million new homes, but they need to be social housing to deal with the homelessness and housing crisis in this country, and instead are likely to be overpriced private homes bought up as buy-to-lets. I have no confidence in it being pretty much anything else, even if anything close to that number end up being delivered at all. Starmer has relaunched himself so many times, it just serves to remind us that this is a man who thinks we are stupid, and will just forget the lies he stood on before by writing all new ones and asking us to judge him on these. We will judge you on everything that you have done before and are doing now, and that's why your polling is going to continue to sink, and sink fast. If Labour want any chance of reversing their fortunes, getting rid of Starmer himself has got to be top of that list. But having rigged the party like he has, I have little faith anyone else taking over will be any better than him in practice. Labour are done for already, and the next 4.5 years are just going to feel like such a waste of time. Of course, there might be a bit of a lifeline here for Starmer, but not one to our benefit. What was he talking to Nigel Farage about the other day in the House of Commons? What was so important he crossed the floor to talk to him about? The guy that's now out polling him, apparently. There could be more to it than mere optics, and I delved into the possibilities, and this video recommendation here is your suggested next watch. So please do hit like, share and subscribe to support the channel if you haven't already done so. It's very much appreciated, and I'll hopefully catch you on the next vid. Cheers, folks.